Hey guys, there's some squeaking in the background because one of the dogs wants to play and she always picks the worst time ever. So please ignore or, laugh because what else are you going to do? Today I wanted to talk about some dot cards a little bit. I've mentioned them before and they're a little controversial. Some people really like them, some people don't. I happen to actually really like them because I can see the colors and kind of make judgments on what I want and what I wouldn't want, I guess. So you guys know that I've recently started getting the Mayberry Blue watercolors. I really like them. I like the fact that they're single pigment watercolors. That makes a big difference in mixing and stuff like that. In a lot of cases, I find it very interesting that they managed to make all these colors as single pigment. So I caved and bought the dot card for this. So as you can see, I've already done one side of it. I know nobody really wants to watch me swatch 90 colors, so I wasn't going to do that to you. I don't know that I'm going to swatch all of the others on camera, but I wanted to do some of them at least and kind of talk about the dot cards. So in this case, this one comes, like I said, 90 colors. There is a little plastic sheet in between them to keep the paints from rubbing together. So in this case, this dot card is kind of printed on a calendarized paper. This is almost like the cover of a wall calendar is what it feels like. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of that. I think there were better options. Do with that what you will. I just think they could have done this a little better. Because of the paper and the way it was set up, I didn't want to swatch on this. You guys saw previously the Winsor Newton comes on a watercolor paper so that you can swatch on the paper. The Daniel Smiths are pretty close together, so I created my own swatching pages on these like I've done with this. So let's put this aside for a moment. So I went ahead and swatched all of these colors. I just wanted to see. Again, I didn't think you guys were going to be interested in watching me swatch all of these, so I went ahead and got started. I want to note that my earth green, for some reason, it looks like they dropped burnt sienna down first and then put green over the top of it. So I didn't end up with much green. What I did was pretty weak tinting strength. I got contaminated here on the burnt sienna from that. I'm a little disappointed in that. I can't quite say for sure what this color is going to look like, and I think it's just a low tinting strength. I don't know, muted green, I guess is what I would call it. Some of these colors did really take me by surprise, I'm not gonna lie. So I actually really like their Potter's Pink. I can't tell you why I like it, but I do. I also want to note that if you pick a color just based on name, you may be disappointed. In this case, they're calling this ultramarine blue. This is definitely not what I would have considered ultramarine blue if I were to go buy it just on name alone. That would be more of the ultramarine light. So this is kind of a good study in some cases of how names can be very misleading. That really took me by surprise. I wasn't really expecting that. So the other color that I don't know, I really ended up liking, and I don't know why, was this brown madder. I certainly wouldn't consider it brown, and it is made with a PR color. Let's see, PR 206 as a matter of fact. But that one really kind of popped for me. This Perm Violet Blue, which I would just consider purple, is definitely one that I would call purple. So again, naming can be challenging. I don't know if I'm saying this right. The Faience Blue is definitely an Indanthrene blue. So their primary blue cyan is their phthalo blue green shade, and the Berlin blue is their phthalo blue red shade. So You know, you just got to be careful with names. So I do want to show on all the dot cards I have bought. Let's go to this side because it's flat. I want to, they're good resources and they're easy to read usually. So it gives me the light fast rating. It tells me if it's transparent, semi-transparent, opaque. And it also gives me the pigment colors. And sometimes it's a lot easier to read off of these than it is the tubes. A lot of times they're printed really tiny on the tubes, and not all of us have 20/20 vision. Some of us are getting old enough where we need readers. Not that we're naming names, but that's something else I like dot cards for. It's a handy resource. Sometimes I will just look stuff up online if I have, you know, a question or whatever, but I do like these. So I just find the dot cards a lot, to have a lot of information and at your fingertips kind of thing. So that said, I'm going to swatch some of these for you. Because of the paper on this, you can see that it buckles pretty good. So we're going to kind of come through this, and then we will talk about this a little more. So let me swap these out. When I laid this out, I just, counted the slots basically and created a grid pattern. This is all pencil, so you can erase it. I know some people use tape. Some people do this much more neatly than I do, and that's fine. I'm just not that neat in particular, so I'm going to put a weight on that to maybe help keep it flat. I don't know if that's going to help or not. We'll see. But, so at the end, I'll just go through and erase my my pencil lines, and then I've got a whole chart. So I am going to put a little drop on each of these, and I don't quite have enough space to show everything, so, but I have found on this, because I think of the paper, these dots are kind of a lot. A lot of dot cards give you a fair bit of paint. I will say in that regard, these dot cards are a little disappointing. They're not a lot of paint. I know my other dot cards have had enough paint you could actually, paint a small scene or something with them. So that is not the case here, but that's okay. I don't expect these whites to really show up on the page, but we swatch them anyway. And this is mostly just to get a feel. And then I want to do some comparison here in a minute on these. I know sometimes when you swatch with the dot cards, and this happened to me very specifically with the Cascade Green Daniel Smith. When I swatched it, it was a very lovely kind of evergreeny type of color. And then when I bought it, because I liked it and I wanted to use it, it ended up being a much more blue. Well, the blue separates out in that color a lot, and I didn't get that from the swatch card. So you do, I guess, maybe have to take some with a grain of salt and go from there. And so we have swatched this golden yellow before. It's very pretty. I like it a lot, actually. It's a very lovely warm. And now we want to play. All right. Hey guys, can we not? Can we not? Thank you. All right. And so I ended up getting the stock card in part because I think I want to build a palette with these colors. And I don't really need all of them, but for instance, I wanted a purple and I didn't know which one was going to be a purple that I liked. And so for 20 bucks, I get it to try out all the colors and see which ones I want to add. So a lot of these dot cards are fairly inexpensive. That said, some of them are a lot more expensive than others. I know the Daniel Smith was about 50 bucks, I think, but you're also swatching, more than 200 colors. I really want to do the A Gala one, but it's also about 50 bucks, and then they're charging like $12 for shipping, so I haven't jumped the gun on that one yet. I just, I don't know. as much as I want to try the Gallo colors because they're beautiful and they're just lovely and all that, I just haven't gotten there yet. In part because I know it'll be a rabbit hole once I start buying them. All right. And so I do think that dot cards do give you in general a fair idea of what these colors are going to do. Like I said, I do like that the information on them is handy and you don't have to dig. You know, sometimes you have to Google and have a look and see, you know, if you can find the information, because it's not always the most legible on the tubes, depending on the brand. Some of them are a little better than others. I was really shocked that the Sennelier colors are pretty visible, like easy to read across the board. They're also a little bigger tubes, I think, which helps. They're just gonna keep playing. Oh, I like this Cad Red medium a lot, actually. That may go in my, I have the sandal red. So I also like to use these dot cards. I mark on them as I go. Like, I'll mark the ones that I have bought so I know at a glance which ones I have already. I did that in my Daniel Smith, and that was super helpful for me. So Daniel Smith, there's so many paints that they come in sheets like this, and there's 5 or 6, I think. So it was a lot. Oops, that doesn't go in there. That goes up here. And these re-wet pretty quickly. Like I said, these dots are not super big or super deep. Couldn't spell orange apparently over here. And I started to just ignore it, and then it was bothering me, so I couldn't. So, like I said, when I re-wet dot cards, I mostly just use a drop of water. I'm not trying to really saturate them, that kind of thing. This isn't a swatch card where I want to see all the variations and the gradients. I just want to have a decent idea of what these colors end up looking like. And for me, I just, like I said, I find swatch cards super helpful. I can see how some people might not like them. They can get kind of pricey. Like I said, this one was only like 20 bucks. I think I got this one from Jerry's, and it was like 19 something. So that, for me personally, I just, like I said, I like to have a look. As I mentioned before, there were some Daniel Smith colors for sure that I would not have bought had I done the swatch cards first, because they weren't what I expected. I do like the Cascade Green, but I do wish the color had gone, had shown all the blue that was in it when I did the dot cards. But like, I would not have gotten the, I think it's their sap green, the Daniel Smith sap green that I don't particularly like. I would not have gotten that, and I honestly wouldn't have gotten Opera Rose if I had realized it was just neon. There's other pinks like Rose Madder that I like a lot more. I would not have gotten that. It's a color that I'm not going to use a whole lot. This is a very transparent color. I'm just kind of moving through these quickly. That Gamboge leans pretty orangey. It's funny, I don't know, I just like looking at how different the colors can be. Oh, that's kind of an interesting. See, these Rose Madders are very red compared to what I'm used to. And like I said, that's, you know, kind of just the difference in brands. And that's why it's interesting a lot of times for me to know the pigment colors and stuff, because it does tell you some information. But there are a lot of pigments that, depending on how they're treated, if they're heated, etc., that can really affect how they look. So there's a lot of them out there that you'll see in multiple colors, and you'll be like, okay, but that's the same pigment. Well, that's because they have a different treatment on them, and that has created the difference. So PV19, I think, is one of them. Oh, what is it? PR like 202, I think. So a lot of those are ones that you see a lot in a lot of different colors, and they show up very differently. All right. Ooh, that's a pretty bright orange. I like that. And this, having a little dot card and being able to do these quickie little swatches is nice too, because then you get to see, oh, is it gonna, you know, they may tell you it granulates, but you don't always know, for instance, you know, how much is gonna granulate, because some things granulate a lot and some things not so much. You know, sometimes they are granulating, but that they're not heavily granulating. Orange Lake, we got that in one of our sets. And I believe, I'm not mistaken, that the pigment on that is the Paranone Orange. Alright. So this quinacridone lake is kind of what I would normally think of as rose madder. I would have to look at pigments to see if they're, what the pigment comparison is, because I don't know that one off the top of my head. I know a few of them, but I don't know all of them by any means. I know my phthalos, probably just because I really like phthalo. And I know some people like to do like a black line over them, but for me, I'm not really looking at all of that. I can look at a color on a page and have a pretty good idea how transparent it is. That's not typically an issue. Some of them do surprise me, and we're going to talk about that in a moment too. They have one on here that I didn't expect to be as opaque as it is. So, all right, yellow ochre. We got this one in one of our sets too. I'm not a huge yellow ochre fan. I know so many people really like it. I don't know. That too will probably last me a minute because I don't use it a lot. Oh, this is going to be a nice pink. Oh yeah. I actually really like that. This Rose Lake color. That's pretty. That actually may be closer to the Rose Madder than I'm used to. Okay, primary red magenta. So this is going to be, if you're using a CMYK palette, this is probably the magenta you're going to want. This is, I would call this kind of strawberry-y, technical term there. All right, let's wet these last few dots. So I did most of the dot cards I have. Their colors change on the horizontal line, so they're gonna go this way. I noticed on these it's the vertical line. I almost like changed up the way I did this because it kind of threw me, I guess, and in the end I decided if I did that it might screw me up. So I would just do them, you know, to coincide with where they sit on the chart, just to make it easier for myself. I like that cad yellow medium. And then here's, move that up. This Perm Yellow Deep. almost done. Golden ochre. This looks like it's going to make really low tinting. Yep. Though to be fair, some of these dots aren't super heavy, so some of them I wonder if they're truly low tinting strength or if it's just because there's not a lot of paint. That one dot of water kind of washed it out. And that I don't know because I don't have a lot of these. So quinacridone magenta. I love quinacridone colors. They're probably some of my favorites, to be honest. Of the like warmer colors. Well, not even the warmer colors because the magentas and stuff aren't warm. But yeah, I love quinacridone colors. Say that 5 times fast. All right, last row. It's kind of the Cad Yellow Deeps, similar to the Gamboge. This is kind of also why I like to do this because you can look and be like, oh, well, these two are really similar. I don't need both of them. This is primary yellow. So this would probably be the one you went with, either in a CMYK or an RGB, or you know, the regular primary color palette. So my favorite, what I would consider primary yellow color right now is the Beam Paint Poplar Yellow. Oh my god, that color is amazing. I love it so much. Raw sienna. So I tend to use raw sienna over the yellow ochre. All right, last two. So overall, I'm glad I bought this dot card, but I will say I'm a little disappointed. Like I said, the amount of paint on some of these makes it hard to see if they're truly low tinting strength or if they are or if it's just the lack of paint on them and the amount of water. It's a pretty pink. That affects it. So, all right. So those are all of those. So we have now swatched out all of these. I'm gonna set this aside so it can finish drying off, but like you can see on this golden ochre, I've pretty much used up that whole dot like that. And so it looks like I can add a little darkness to it, but I do think it's just a low tinting strength. But we're gonna set this aside and let it dry out on both of them. Hi, Peanut. You gonna come help me paint? Yeah? Okay. All right, so let's go back to this. So the Viridian, I haven't looked up the information. Viridian is often toxic. I do have a true Viridian in, I believe it's M-gram. The saturation is much deeper than this. This was also a color that didn't seem to have a lot of paint on it. It doesn't say hue, so I'm going to assume that it is a toxic version. I also have a Viridian hue in Winsor Newton. I think it's Winsor Newton. That is a very solid color too, but it is a, a mixture. Like I said, it is a hue. But I wanted to kind of show this. I've noticed it. This is the Sennelier Phthalo Turquoise that I swatched for you guys in a previous video. This is the Phthalo Turquoise from May Mary Blue. So the Sennelier is a combination, but the Phthalo Turquoise here is actually a single pigment. And it is, oh gosh, I looked it up a minute ago. I believe it's PB16. And I haven't looked up that pigment because I was kind of caught off guard. I don't think I've ever seen PB16 before. Maybe I have. But look how similar they are. So yeah, you can create this color if you've got your phthalos, but these are very similar colors. And I just found it interesting that May Mary Blue did it with a single pigment and everybody else is using double pigments. So stuff like that, I don't know. I find it interesting. I'll be honest, if I had discovered this brand first, I might have gone with it instead of, most of my paint is still Daniel Smith. I have a good mix of other stuff in there now, but I have well over 100 of their colors. So this sepia color, it was way more opaque than I anticipated. It's very, very opaque. So that was interesting. This Van Dyke brown wasn't quite the brown I anticipated. Most of the Van Dyke browns I'm used to seeing are pretty dark and very cool. This one doesn't seem to lean cool to me, so I thought that was interesting. Like I said, I ended up really liking this Potter's Pink. I do have the Daniel Smith Potter's Pink. I have not compared them yet, but overall, you know, I do like the dot cards, and I'm not sorry I got the dot cards. I do think their quality control could be a little better on them. Like, you know, the fact that this color clearly was not laid down appropriately. And I do think that they need to make sure that all the dots are going to be appropriately big enough to truly swatch. Because I do feel like there are some of them that are perhaps not, you know, they're just not as good on that end, I guess, as they could or should be. So anyway, that's kind of a discussion for the dot cards. I hope you guys found that interesting. If you like dot cards or you don't like dot cards, please let me know. Tell me your thoughts. I know a lot of people find them to be wasted money that they just want to spend on paint, but for me, it really does help me decide, you know, what colors are going to be useful to me, because some people may really love opera pink. I know it's very popular. It is just not a color I'm going to use. And like I said, I would not have bought it if I had done dot cards at the beginning. So that's why I find these very interesting and useful. Like I said, some people think that they're just a waste of money. So let me know what you think, and, you know, have a great day. Go paint something.